Which career suits your personality? Do you feel out of sync with your current career? Do you feel like most of your peers have personalities that are better for the job that you have? Well, you're probably not alone. Many people search for this type of term online, and they all are trying to figure out if there is a career out there that best fits their personalities. If that's you, watch this video till the end, and you'll get a better idea for what you can look for in your personality and in jobs that you can go for so that you have a higher chance to succeed. If you want to find and nurture your ideal vocation, occupation, or hobby, subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell below. Also, if you find that you like this video, hit the like button and share it with your friends. Okay, so let me start by stating that the question, which career fits my personality, is not a good question in and of itself. Why? I mean, it's a good first question because it's the first thing that comes to your mind. You're thinking that maybe you're not feeling good where you're at because your personality doesn't fit the workplace. And maybe that's true. But going from my personality doesn't fit the current workplace to, oh yeah, I'm going to find a new vocation or a new occupation that fits my personality are two very different things. Even if you choose an occupation that has people that are successful who have your personality, that doesn't mean that you yourself will be successful. Why is that? Because your personality is not the only thing that you need to take into account to make sure that you are picking a career, a vocation, or maybe even a type of business that is going to be best suited for you and your needs. Now, why is that the case? Well, this is the first question. Even if we're talking only about personality, are we sure that we are measuring our personalities the right way? Because maybe the first thing that pops into most people's minds is the whole thing about, oh, I'm an introverted or, oh, I'm an extroverted. And that is a good place to start, but that doesn't mean that that's your whole personality. For example, you might be an extroverted person. You like being around people, you like being social, and you go for a job that requires you to be social and to be around people, right? Let's say be a promoter of some sort. But maybe that's not going to be a good job for you if you need to be organized and have a good tight schedule, and it requires a lot of what we call conscientiousness, which is another dimension of your personality, and you are more to the other side. You're kind of like more easygoing, you're more flexible, so that's going to be an issue. So that's why in this video we're going to cover the 5 aspects of your personality based on the Big 5 factor model that is the most widely accepted personality quiz right now, personality test assessment. And we're going to give you some ideas and some examples of how that can help you in some vocations or not, right? So that you can make a better decision for yourself. But before we do that, this is a big disclaimer, and that is that even if you do your due diligence with regards to your personality, and let's say you use this test to assess your personality and make sure that you know where you are on those 5 traits, that's still not enough to make sure that you're going to be successful in a career that you pick. Why? Because your personality is only one of many factors that determines whether or not you're going to be a good fit for a particular role. Let me explain. Some other factors besides your personality are your interests. In other words, what kind of job do you actually find appealing? And I've mentioned this in other videos in the sense of you want to find work jobs and activities that make you feel like you want to do them even if you're not getting paid for them. In other words, you're getting what we call intrinsic value from them. That's a part of your interest. That also goes to say about what we call passions, right? Like, oh, I have a passion for this industry, right? So when you talk about function and industry, that goes into the interest aspect of it. And that's a big, important part of what you're going to be good at and what you're going to really enjoy, because this is about picking something you will enjoy that will allow you to be successful over the long term, other than just picking a job just because it fit your current skill level in an area that you don't care about. That's not going to be a good way to go. Or in an area where, oh yeah, people have your personality, but that's it. Maybe it's not paying you enough. Another important aspect that we wouldn't be measuring if we just take into account personality is your values. I believe I mentioned this in another video as well. I may link to it in the cards. Is that maybe you value economics, or maybe you value giving back to the community. You might get into a job that's good for your personality. Yeah, like, it's for people who are open, who are extroverted, people who are not very organized, etc., etc., etc. But it may not be a type of work that either interests you, or even if it interests you, maybe it's not something that it's according to your personal values. And by definition, you are not feeling fulfilled at your job, even though everything should be okay. Now, comment below if you know someone or you've lived this yourself, that you are in a job that should be perfect for you. Like everything seems to fit and yet you don't feel right in it. And before making this preamble too long, some of the other things to take into account are, okay, like in what type of workplace or culture, work culture do you do better in, right? And that can be further broken down into separate items that you need to check. Um, what kind of preferences do you have? Some people like to go into the skills aspect of things, which is interesting. It's like, okay, you're good at something, then let's match you with that. But based on some of the most accepted studies that have been done, the skills part is not really as important as the interest part, in the terms of when you have a strong interest, you will develop those skills once you're in that career, versus if you have a very high skill set for a career that you have no interest in, you're really not going to get anywhere there and you're going to be miserable, and that's not what we want. So that's why I don't count so much on skill sets, but I do put some weight on preferences as well as interest, values, culture, among other things that you have to consider beyond just your personality. With that said, let's jump into the personality aspect of it. All right, so we've already mentioned the extroversion aspect of your personality many times. I even have a video on careers for introverts, and I might do one for extroverts. Extroverts, if you want one, comment below and let me know. But let's move into some of the other ones that are not as known. So we already mentioned the aspect of conscientiousness. What conscientiousness measures is whether or not you're the kind of person who is very organized and very tight. You're going to excel in careers or positions in which you have to be very organized with your processes. You have to have very good attention to detail. You follow schedules, you follow rules, you make sure that things don't fall through the cracks, and you're good dealing with deadlines in the sense of not procrastinating and making sure that the work is done in a timely fashion. That's if you're very high in this measure, in this trait, conscientiousness. Now, if you are low on it, that's obviously been the opposite. You're the kind of person who procrastinates. You're the kind of person who is not very organized. Maybe you arrive late to meetings. You're very easygoing. You like to go about life doing things in your own way, right? So it's not to say that you're going to be one or the other. You're probably going to be between the extremes. If you have someone who's super uptight on one end, super conscientious, and then on the other hand you have someone who's super easygoing, doesn't care about anything, doesn't advance in life, like all that stuff that we hear, like the potential stereotype parents in the movies say, like, oh, you're a low life, you're not gonna get anywhere, right? So those are two extremes, and then most people fall somewhere in the middle. Maybe you are closer to the very organized person, maybe you're closer to the very easygoing one. The point is that you need to know where you match, because if you are in an environment, let's say you are working as an engineer in a process, or as an industrial engineer, and you are dealing with a process, and you need to make sure that you are organized and that the production process is done in the right way, with good quality within a certain time period. And that requires a lot of organization of yourself and others, especially if you're a manager. And that's going to be an environment in which if you are too easygoing, not very organized, you're probably not going to do very well at it, and you're going to dislike it, you're going to hate it. As opposed to that, if you are too tight, too organized, too conscientious, and you are in an environment in which you're supposed to be more relaxed, someone who's more easygoing. A potential example will be something that's more in the entertainment business, not necessarily the entertainment from the point of view of like movies, actors, and all that high production value stuff, but more in terms of hospitality, where clients can feel whether you're being excessively uptight or difficult, or if you are being more easygoing, relaxed, right? Even then you have to be somewhat organized, but maybe you have someone to organize things for you, and you can just go into it and be yourself. The next aspect is openness. So basically what openness is about is openness to new experiences. So, for example, are you the type of person who likes to do more or less the same thing day after day, to have an environment that's not going to change too much? Or are you the type of person who prefers to have change and to have different things in your life more often than not? Well, that's what openness is. If you are someone who's high on the openness trait, that means that you're going to enjoy having different experiences, maybe a job that's going to let you travel, who requires you to travel, or a job requires you to build different capabilities or work with different departments, and always be on the lookout for different experiences and different things to do. Uh, if you are the kind of person who likes to go to the same place, to have some structure that you already know what to expect before you start your day, then a job that's going to require you to travel all over the place and do many different tasks that you weren't necessarily trained for, it's not going to be the best fit for you, right? So that's another thing that you got to take into account. The next one is somewhat self-explanatory, and that is agreeableness. So essentially, what the agreeableness means for people who don't know is how agreeable are you to others? In other words, when you work with other people, are you the kind of person who's very distant and you don't really care about people? In fact, you maybe go as far as manipulating people and not caring about their feelings or their emotions or their well-being? Or are you the kind of person who's on the other extreme, who is way too caring, maybe even to a fault, because you really care too much about others and that kind of thing, right? So that's the whole point about agreeableness. You are either in the extreme that you care too much, or in the extreme in which you care too little. Uh, Again, like most people will be somewhere in the middle. You're probably someone who's agreeable to people, you behave well with them, but maybe you don't necessarily care too much about them. Or maybe you are the person who is agreeable, you care about others, and you do your things, you conduct your interactions well, but you don't necessarily go exceedingly far. It's like you have a good balance of both, right? So that's another thing that's going to be important, because you could be in a culture in which, and I've been in one myself, where people like to hug each other when they meet every day in the morning and kiss each other in the cheeks and touching and talking, right, about your day. If you're a person who doesn't like that, you might struggle with that thing, and people are going to see you as odd, and like that's going to make a whole thing in the workplace, right? Uh, Conversely, if you're the kind of person who likes to have that human touch and that's important to you, and you are in a workplace environment in which people don't do any of that, it's like, oh, don't talk to me. Like, you're gonna feel disconnected. You're gonna feel like people don't care about you. You're gonna be demotivated in your workplace, and that's not what we want. And the final trait that we haven't talked about so far is neuroticism. So basically, what this is when it comes to your own emotions, how good are you at handling them? Are you the type of person who gets super anxious, or are you the type who doesn't? So if you are very high on neuroticism, it means that whenever something happens that in the environment, the workplace environment, maybe a deadline is coming sooner, maybe there is suddenly a meeting with the boss, you get very, very anxious, right? And you have a hard time, your heart accelerates. If conversely you're low on neuroticism, when anything happens, you're probably on the calmer side. Maybe there was an alarm and there is actually a fire in your office, and you'll find two types of people: the ones who go crazy, and the ones who are still calm, and they stand up, they do the procedures, they exit the building, or they exit their department on the right way, but they're still calm, right? So those are people who are low on neuroticism, the latter. So that will give you an idea. For example, if you are in a very high pressure environment, let's say like in some investment banks and some Wall Street positions, in which you have to be very quick with regards to your actions, and there is a lot of pressure on you with regards to deadlines and that kind of thing, then if you are very high on neuroticism, that's going to be difficult on you, because in order to cope with those emotions, you're probably going to start doing things like, I don't want to go for the stereotype, but like even in the movie of like The Wolf of Wall Street and that kind of thing, where people just start either drinking too much, eating too much, smoking too much, or going and having too much fun, if you know what I mean, in order to cope with that, right? But if you are on the naturally calmer side, that might be easier for you in terms of, okay, like this happened, what do we have to do next? You go, you execute, and it doesn't really get to you that much. So that is neuroticism. And the fifth trait that we're going to talk about here with regards to the big factor model. All right. So if you want to get a sense for your personality, check if the description box below has a link for you to take a test. And get a better idea for your personality, probably somewhere along these 5 traits. If there isn't one yet, depending on what you're watching this, that's fine. You can probably find a big 5-factor test free online, just Google it, and you should get a pretty decent result in terms of giving you an idea of where you are on each of those 5 traits. Many of these tests, what they do is they give you an idea of where you stand relative to the rest of the population or the rest of the group of people who have taken that test before from the website you're taking it. So for example, you could take it and it will give you something like 57, which will be like openness. You are more open than 57% of people, which means that you're kind of like in the middle but slightly above the average, so to speak. Well, it depends on the average, but that'll give you an idea. If you have something like 90 something, then you'll know that you are incredibly open relative to most people, and you're probably going to have to want to weight that very heavily when you're looking for a potential career to do. So that'll give you an idea for how to interpret your scores. So great. Now you know exactly what to look for when it comes to personalities and how to somewhat map them yourself with regards to some potential careers. Now, I know we didn't go too in-depth on the how to do the actual mapping between potential careers and whatnot. For that, you could take other tests or go with a career counselor or do more research online. If you want to know more about that, let me know in the comments below. But another thing you should have gotten from this video is also the big disclaimer that you should not look for a career based only on your results from a personality test, because you also need to know your values, what kind of culture you do well in, your interests, your preferences, among other things, right? So with that said, if you like this video, remember to hit that like button, subscribe to this channel, and hit the notification bell below. And remember to either leave a comment or share it with some friends that could potentially benefit from this. Bye-bye.